Hi guys, and welcome to this video on the full moon in Cancer that happens on the 7th of January 2023. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And the chart you see next to me here, that's a snapshot of the sky when this full moon is going to take place. I'm going to analyze the chart, see how the planets interact with one another. And the point of these horoscopes is to see what opportunities these full moon energies give you and where the potential pitfalls are. So it's a way of navigating this time. And I always mention that the full moon is a 3-day event. So in this case, I would say the 6th, 7th and 8th of January are when you're going to feel this or notice something happening with the way you feel. So timing wise, if you're in Europe or in Africa, this happens at 7 minutes past midnight on the 7th of January. If you're in North or South America, it happens on the East Coast at 7 past 6 in the evening on the 6th of January. West Coast, 7 minutes past 3 in the afternoon on the 6th of January. And then East of Europe later on during the morning. So this is an interesting full moon because there are lots of contradictions in this chart, I feel. And first of all, it's a micromoon. So it's the opposite of a supermoon when the moon is close to the Earth and it appears to be much bigger and we feel the influence of it much more. A micromoon is then further away from the Earth. It's smaller and it feels more remote. And the interesting thing is this is a full moon in Cancer, which is always a very emotional moon as far as I'm concerned. So the way I think this is going to appear is that there's going to be an odd sense of, I'm not connected with my own feelings. Where am I? What am I doing? Where is everybody? Like the sense of what's going on. And that's going to be very uncomfortable. But I don't know, if you've watched my channel for any number of time, then I've made videos on the full moon, on several full moons in Cancer before. And usually when I'm filming, I'm like an emotional wreck. But this time I'm not feeling that, and there's a certain lightness associated with it. So I don't think you're going to be overwhelmed emotionally. I think what will feel weird and odd is that you really are going to say, hey, well, where's my internal navigation system here? And it's going to force you to look at other ways of solving problems, which again is very on brand with what some of the other things that are going on here. Mercury is in retrograde until the 18th of January. Mercury is a communication planet, and when that's in retrograde, it's an opportunity to see things differently. And then Mars, the planet of drive and desire, that's in retrograde until the 12th of January. So you may have a strange sense of, hey, I haven't got the momentum that I usually do. Or you may find yourself pursuing areas of interest that usually don't interest you. So things are being kind of flipped around. I think fundamentally, this is going to be a time of being pushed and pulled in lots of different directions, and possibly even a sense of anxiety that something is off. Maybe I'll focus on something else to give me that sense of security. Okay, so we've got a couple of things happening here. The strongest element of the day is air, which again makes me take notice because a full moon in Cancer is usually all about water, all about your relationships, what makes you feel home, what makes you feel content and safe. And here we've got all this air saying, okay, but what about your perspective? And what do you think about this? And what about organizing things differently? So that's unusual in itself. Strongest mode of the day is cardinal. So it's really saying, take charge of something. Okay, but if the moon is super remote and I can barely feel it, then what am I taking charge of? It's this constant sense of I'm kind of at a loss here. The other thing is, first of all, okay, so the sun is at 16 degrees in Capricorn. The sun is really the identity identity you want to embody. It's what makes you feel alive and powerful in terms of what you're doing. It's the solar plexus. It's what gives you a sense of being self-contained, independent, and doing the right thing. 1 and 6 is 7, that's the mind and creativity. And Capricorn is the sign of the worker, it's an earth sign. So 1, there's a big focus on work, but at 16 degrees, it's this, rather than doing the work, I'm now assessing it. I'm kind of taking a step back from it and seeing what my circumstances are like and if they still suit me. So it's almost like taking personal inventory And it's almost like this, the distance of the moon, or the emotional distance it creates, allows you to become a lot more objective about other things in your life. That makes sense. I mean, if your feelings are kind of, the volume is turned down, then looking at someone and just immediately being, oh my God, I love you, I love you, I love you. If that's turned down a little bit, then you're like, actually, did you pay the bill? Or have I paid it for the last 3 times, you know? So that objectivity is kind of a good thing sometimes. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but did I mention it? This is the wolf moon. And astrology is based on the seasons, right? And the northern hemisphere. So in the northern hemisphere right now, it's snowing, and lone wolves have to get in touch with other wolves because resources are so scarce, and they really have to use their wits, because to get a tiny little thing, they have to work a lot harder, right? So I think that's very on brand as well. It's like, I need to do what I have to almost. I have to overcome challenges. There's a certain sense of responsibility, but even seriousness of, I'm going to have to rely on myself and others. So it's a very black and white kind of energy. It's about what is or what isn't, and it can appear tough. So I'm just thinking as I'm speaking, because what makes you feel emotionally at home? If you know that swimming makes you feel, it gives you a sense of well-being, or like, eating an ice cream to treat yourself when you've done something difficult, or hanging out with the kids, or painting a picture, or singing a song, or, I'm just throwing things out there, but what makes you feel good? I think it's a good idea before this all starts to become aware of that and to deliberately do those things, because it isn't a particularly warm and fuzzy full moon in Cancer. It isn't. And that's where I think deliberately you can make yourself feel better with that. Mercury, the communication planet, is next to the Sun in Capricorn. It's 1 degree away. And Mercury does give you a different perspective right now. And being on top of the Sun, also in Capricorn, it's really, how are you positioned in your life? Does your job suit you? Are you treating your physical body well? Do you want to be in the situation that you're in? It asks you these questions in a practical sense. And again, the emotions aren't going to distract you. So it's really about like taking stock and being very analytical, I suppose, and allowing new ideas to come in. The moon in itself is at 16 degrees in Cancer. So same thing, 1 and 6 is 7. Creativity. That's interesting, because I think if you feel uncomfortable with this strange sense the moon gives, you may veer off, so get creative and veer off in a different direction in order to give you a sense of belonging and safety, and to reduce the anxiety. So what if I distract myself with other people? Or I make a big plan and really go for it? Or I just go with the work? I think that's the key thing to watch out for, to not let to attach yourself to something in order for it to give you that sense of peace and contentment. I think it's much better to to allow that sense of vacuum, or this feels different, because that will teach you something in its own right, usually to hold off until you feel more in touch with your gut, or this is something I want to do. Okay, the moon creates a lot of connections with other things in the chart. If you tilt your head a little bit and you look in the center, you'll see this big red square. That's made up of 4 squares when 2 planets are 90 degrees away from each other. And we've got 4 of them creating this big square. And each one indicates friction and a sense of being pushed and pulled. Should I, shouldn't I? 4 of them really amplifies that. And the whole full moon, I think, is about being torn in lots of different directions, not really knowing what is the priority at the moment. And my key kind of guidance on this is to resist that feeling of compensating just to avoid the objectivity. I do my regular meditation. I usually do mantra meditations, but a while ago I wanted to do something different. I wanted to try something else. So and it sounds kind of sinister. Well, no, it doesn't. It sounds kind of boring. He said, sit in a room, do nothing, and just stare at the wall for 30 minutes. I was like, okay. But I did it, and immediately what came up was this sense of anxiety. Oh my God, what if like this vacuum opens up and swallows me into it? Like this black hole appears and I disappear. It's almost like it taught me that often I'm constantly doing something, trying to distract myself in order to manage my own feelings, that I don't like this place of, because it's undefinable, right? And it's like, okay. But what I learned through that is that there's a real comfort associated with that vacuum, because nothing is changing. It just is what it is. It's just another thing. Like a big planet that feels warm, a black hole or a vacuum is just something else. So the more you recognize your own state, the more you can then respond and saying, hey, listen, I'm not emotionally very tuned into myself right now. Maybe I'll take this time to objectively assess everything. I'll hold off on making big decisions until I feel more connected. I think that kind of thing is super useful. Okay, so the first square of the moon in Cancer is with the rising sign in Libra at 14 degrees. 1 and 4 is 5, freedom. And Libra may seem like an out. If I feel unsettled, I connect with others. Chiron at 12 degrees in Aries. Chiron is the wounded healer. 1 and 2 is 3, that's communication and new beginnings. And Aries is the ram, I independently. So maybe I should do something risky or do something just on my own or for myself as a way to distract myself. That's what I'd watch out for. Big decisions on this day. There's just too much going on that conflicts somehow. I feel, a complicated time where it's important to keep it simple and to be nice to yourself. The final squares, creating this big red square, is then with the Sun and Mercury in Capricorn. And that even may prompt you to get overly creative with making change in your life just for the sake of it, to feel better, to feel like you're doing something. And again, unless you're emotionally certain about that, I would hold off. So what's the blessing of this then? One, that as far as I'm concerned, that you realize it's okay to be by yourself on your own, and that you have your own journey. And that even if you don't feel super certain about the direction you're going in, what that reveals is that even when you're not sure, there's something in your life that has you on a path. And that is a force, whatever you want to call it, mystery, the universe, your guides. It's something that is paying attention to you and is taking loving guidance. So even when you're not 100%, I'm stuttering. If you don't have 100% clear view of what you're doing, then there's some loving force in your life that supports you in those moments. And that's what can be revealed to you, that you don't always need to be in control, that you don't always need to figure it out, that you're surfing this loving wave, and by leaning back into it, it can really reduce anxiety, like moving forward permanently. Because if you know you're being held in the palm of a loving universe, then you don't need to manage so much, because it will be taken care of anyway, right? So this is a major, if you can tolerate the discomfort of it, I think this is a major revelation of how you feel about your existence here, and it is massively helpful in getting rid of like existential angst. Okay, I'm going to look at some of the other aspect patterns the moon forms. It forms a sextile with Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is the planet of the miraculous, the unexpected. Taurus is Earth. So the sextile of the moon, the muted feelings with things that are uncontrollable in your life, that's actually helpful because you're not going to sweat it so much. See, the inner anxiety is bigger, so the outside anxiety doesn't seem so important. It's all relative. It's all a matter of perspective. The next connection is a trine with Neptune at 22 degrees in Pisces. Neptune is the water planet of dreams and intuition. At 22, it's the master number of the builder. And in Pisces, it's in the sign that it rules. So Neptune is in the sign it's ruling. It's very happy in that. And it's saying, I want to build the dream. I want to manifest what I can. But it then trines, it's in a harmonious relationship 120 degrees away with this faint little moon in Cancer. So it may create a sense of, I should be doing something right now, but I don't know what. So it's the same thing as maybe I'll go talk to some people to calm down, or it's a very odd kind of thing. So I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but I think the key thing is to get comfortable with that sense of discomfort because it offers you so much. Any other relationships? It opposes the Sun and Mercury. I've mentioned that. No, that's it. No, it trines the South Node in Scorpio at 9 degrees. It does. So it's 120 degrees away from the South Node. The South Node is really like on a spiritual level, the place you're coming from. The North Node is the direction you're moving towards. And the South Node is in Scorpio, so that's about, I'm trying to control my emotions. And the North Node in Taurus says, I'm trying to control my circumstances. So it echoes this whole sentiment. If I can't control my emotions, then I need to control something else to feel better, resist. Yeah. So you know what, joking aside, I think this is really like if you have compulsive behavior, like it doesn't need to be an addiction or anything, but if you at times feel compelled to do something in order to change the way you feel, oh, someone just dumped me, I need to go buy myself something nice to feel better. You know, it's that thing. And if it becomes a compulsion, then like excessive shopping or anything like that, that's really the thing I would watch out for. To be aware that I may have certain triggers when I feel unwell, then I may try and, I don't know, eat something to feel better, or smoke something, or drink something. Or ultimately, the best way to navigate this is to get okay with the feeling. With Uranus and Taurus, to deal with things that may feel frightening and to take advantage of that they're not so threatening at the moment. And then also grounding it by being out in nature, I would say. Yeah, because we haven't had a lot of useful earthy influences except this North Node in Taurus. So what you're moving towards is a sense of calm through the physical world. So getting in touch with my body, what I said earlier about taking stock of what your circumstances are like, whether you're still happy with them, and using that objectivity to gain clear answers on real life things. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but yeah. Ultimately, you're more objective about your circumstances because you're not so swept up in your emotions. So if you can tolerate that sense of unease, you'll be able to gain a lot of great insights in terms of what you want to change in future without the usual anxiety then. So this is like it's very interesting to me. And I hope I've been able to explain it in a way that makes sense. This one is very unlike other full moons in Cancer where, you know, usually the emotions are heightened and your relationships can be very tumultuous and it's usually a bit of a ride. Okay, so I think that's it. Miss anything? I usually see something else if I keep looking. No? Nope? Okay. So I hope that gives you something to go on for this full moon in Cancer. If you'd like a personal reading with me where I draw up the natal chart, your natal chart based on your date of birth, place of birth and time of birth, I get a wheel like this. I analyze it the same way. It shows me your strengths, weaknesses, certain areas that are highlighted. If you're going through changes at the moment and you want to see what to look at in 2023 or what's coming up for you, if you have any questions around career or relationships or spiritual development or moving or anything at all, please do get in touch for a personal reading so I can look at those for you. I also use the tarot and numerology in my personal readings. And if you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. Please hit subscribe and share the video online. Check out my daily tarot videos. I do those every day. And the weekly horoscopes I do as well. have a look at that if you want more information about this week. So I hope you have a great time. All the best. Let us know how you get on in the comments, and I'll speak to you soon.